Hello, everyone. I will be discussing textile industry waste disposal. My group members include Joseph Garani, who will talk about personal shred and rebuild, Hong Trong, who will discuss recycling the undesirables, me, Cami Hawkins, who will discuss chemically decomposing textile waste, and Sean Fu, who will talk about the use of textile waste for building materials. Our client includes Michael S. Reagan, who is the administrator of the EPA, the United States Environmental Protection Agency, that deals with recycling and environmental issues. Our proposal is to provide alternatives for disposing textile waste. According to the Council for Textile Recycling, the average US citizen throws away 70 pounds of clothing and other textiles annually. Textile waste causes major pollution. This brings me to my first point about chemically depolymerizing textile waste, which can be used to produce fuel, as well as other chemicals that are useful. Ways that chemicals are used to eliminate textile waste include chemically treating water that contains textile waste dyes, chemically recycling textile waste through acid hydrolysis, and turning textile waste into fuel through hydrothermal carbonization. In the process of chemically treating contaminated water due to textile dyes, the water supply includes using lead nitrate, methylene blue, and sodium tungstate dihydrate. These chemicals together produce lead tungstate nanoparticles. These particles can absorb more hydroxide groups and oxidatively degrade the pollutants in the textile wastewater. The photocatalyst using lead tungstate nanoparticles is an effective method for treating industrial wastewater, as it substantially eliminates toxic pollutants by turning them into harmless end products like carbon dioxide, water, and mineral acids. When it comes to chemically recycling textile waste through acid hydrolysis, this process includes a two-step process that takes cotton waste textiles and it produces a glucose solution. To perform this, they use sulfuric acid, which is needed to break down the fabric. And it takes two steps. So the first process, they use a high concentrate of sulfuric acid on the garment and at a low temperature. And then in the second step, they use a concentrated solution of sulfuric acid. Through the testing process, I saw that if you use too much, that it would break the fabric down and there was no glucose to be produced. So they had to do it like in two steps. When it comes to turning textile waste into fuel through hydrothermal carbonization, which is the most cost-effective process to create fuel from textile waste, this processing is, when it comes to hydrothermal carbonization, this is where biomass is heated at a temperature range of 200 to 300 degrees Celsius in the presence of water. And through this process, it produces hydro shards, which could be used as solid fuel. In the figure below, it gives you an example. If you take cotton textile waste and iron chloride and combine them, it goes through a process, the hydrothermal carbonization process, which creates hydro shards, which are things that could be used as solid fuel. And that concludes my section.
Okay, hello everybody. I'm Joseph Shirani, and I'm here to present my side of the presentation, my part of the presentation. So, let us begin with some obvious things that need to be said, okay? I want you to think about very carefully, where are the places that I would be concerned with quality control? Well, I've got a few listed here: buildings, electronics, food, body armor, automobiles, public transportation, all sorts of things. These have quality control. We have standards that we want in these products and services to be sure that our health, safety, and enjoyment, our utility of them is not bad. It's gotta be quality. So, this doesn't exactly exist with clothing. The closest comparison I can give you would be with a body armor example. So, with body armor, you have several different types of levels. You have, level 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I remember, for example, that level 3 body armor should protect the user against anything that's fired out of a normal pistol, and it can block certain things that shoot stronger than that. But clothing does not have any sort of protection to worry about. People will buy a raincoat or a hoodie or some shoes, but they're not explicitly designed to protect against any danger. So really, they're just bought to look good and to cover yourself in most cases. The other factor is warmth, but that is usually on a opinionated level. How warm a piece of clothing keeps you, that's usually up to opinion. So, with that in mind, let's see how am I going to approach the waste problem? um You see, with recycling and the current trend with how our clothing consumption has gone, I don't think recycling is going to help. We have effectively doubled our textile consumption since 1999. And that was according to a BBC article that not this, but the 85% of clothes that get sent to the landfill. That was according to a BBC article I read, and this is from a poster that I'll link in the description of the video. So not only do we have the issue of double consumption, even if we took this 85% that gets sent to a landfill and we increased that the because this means we are increasing from 15% to 30. Let's say if you want a 50% landfill, that would just be from 15% recycled to 50%. There would be a 35% increase. So that still isn't going to be enough, even if we increased our recycling capabilities to 50% recycled, because then we're just back down to 1999 standards of clothing consumption. So we got to do more than just recycle. We got to do more than that. The 60% I'm referring to here is saying if we were to reduce from 85% sent to landfill to 60%. Because let's be real, there's no way that we would be able to reduce any further than that in a short time span. So much would need to be done to the consumer's habits, and that's not going to happen. So, what I am proposing is to shred and rebuild. Think of a paper shredder and think of how clothes are manufactured in the first place. Okay? So, a paper shredder takes a piece of paper and turns it into a bunch of tiny shreds. And when you have clothing, when you want to make some clothing, you get a bunch of fabric like a barn of yarn, and you knit that together. Now, no one these days really knits their clothes by hand. That's done by machine, but the concept is the same. You have some stools of fabric for knitting and some stools of fabric for sewing. You take those machines and take the fabric and you turn them into clothes. There's some steps in between, sure, but that's the main concept. And what I'm basically suggesting here is that we should take that same concept of a paper shredder that is able to turn the paper into a bunch of shreds. We can take that concept and instead shred our clothes into what they were, the sum of their parts. We don't even need to care about the quality of the fabric because, as I said all the way over here, that there is no quality control for the materials that you put into your clothing. So don't worry about that. You just tear it, bring it back into balls of yarn, and then have a machine turn that back into clothing, new clothing. You take a bunch of your old garments, you don't even need to worry about if they're clean or not, and you turn them back into clothing. Of course, this would work for this concept has no problems with things like t-shirts, sweaters, and all that. But someone might say, well, what about buttons? What about zippers? Well, that problem has already been solved in itself. We have 3D printers. We've already got people making 3D printed zippers and buttons. It doesn't take much effort to tell a machine to take those buttons and zippers and sew them onto clothing. That's probably the easiest part of what I'm suggesting here. And the other thing I'm suggesting is that this type of machinery should be available to the public in the same capacity that a washing machine is available to the public. Because, well, that that's that's how you're going to convince people to go along with this technology in the first place. Not only do you have if not not only do you have to worry about technology, but you need to think about the availability. Nobody would care about washing machines if they couldn't buy them and use them for themselves. So I am not suggesting that this technology would be involve recycling centers and they would take this and shove it all the way to some factory or who knows where that has giant machines. I am insisting that they must be the same size and relatively the same cost as a washing or drying machine. This also has other benefits that I have not discussed, such as the fact that since I am insisting that the consumers would be shredding and rebuilding their own clothes, this also solves the problem of any health and safety risks. If they're doing this to their own clothes, then they know exactly what they put in and what they put out. So, normally, when you want to take something like underwear and you want to take it and um, do some like get rid of it, you don't recycle that. You don't send that to Goodwill. They're not going to accept it. You can't even return a pair of underwear if you bought that from a grocery store, clothing store, or whatever. They're not going to accept it because of health and safety risks. But if you were to take a bunch of your old underwear and you wanted to make a t-shirt out of that, no one's going to stop you because it's your own clothing. You made it and you wore the materials before and you're wearing the materials again. Other features I'd like to add, I would like to suggest to add would be things like being able to dye the clothes and add logos on top of it, similar to how a 3D printer is able to take any 3D file and turn it into a plastic model, a plastic figure of some sort. You can do that with 2D art designs. You would print the clothing and you'd put on a Supreme logo, a Nike logo, or whatever without worrying about copyright infringement. And this would not only encourage people to recycle, it would encourage creativity, and it would also encourage people to simply not buy any new clothing. If you want to get some clothes that are the hip new latest design, but and you really want it, then you would just be taking any of your old clothes that you're no longer going to wear, you throw that into the machine and you tell it, hey, I want to have this graffiti style painted onto the new hoodie I'm making. And it'll do it. Just like a printer will print out anything you want, and a 3D printer will print any model you want. And so one other thing I'd want to that would be planned would be, just as the machines should be affordable for the average middle class person, in case there are poor who would like to recycle and not contribute to textile waste, it would be very convenient to also set up laundromats or add these machines to existing laundromats to further improve our impact on the environment. So, in short, tear the clothes, make them into new clothing. You want to have it as available as possible, and that means both cost and design and programming. This project should not be using any proprietary blueprints or any sort of proprietary source code. Everything should be open source. The blueprints must be openly available, because if we truly want to pretend that we care about the environment, then we should make it so that the technology is once again as accessible as possible. This would not only encourage the use of the technology, it would encourage any further potential improvements. It would encourage multiple designs and customer variety, variety available to the customers. One of the potential designers or companies that could be capable of hauling out such machines would be Amazon. As they do with all of their Amazon Basics products, they have their tentacles in every type of product imaginable, or Samsung, or anyone who would be interested. Anyways, that's the end of my project, my part of the project, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll pass it on.
Hi everyone, my name is Huang Trung and I will be doing recycling methods.
Hello everyone. My name is Fu, and I'm gonna share about the used textile waste for building material. That's my part. So the building material covered from textile waste is one of the many building materials in today's society. This building material can also be named a green building material. Textiles not only include clothes or daily necessities that we humans wear every day, but also clothes and plastics that are widely used in medicine also. So when textiles are used by humans, they become to the waste. After, with the support of modern technology development, people have developed various methods to deal the textile waste. That is pretty bad. And considering all the substitutes for building materials, the building materials covered from textile waste are the most economical and environmentally friendly, because ordinary building materials or textile waste burning treatment technologies are not environmentally sustainable. Therefore, the construction materials transformed from textile waste development the two hidden dangers of destroying the natural environment at the same time. Therefore, the building materials covered from textile waste have the top performance, the most economical cost, and the most environmentally friendly materials composition for ordinary building materials. All right. Right, how do I get next page? What? All right. Strong performance. So use of natural materials as reinforced in cement concrete, cellulose fibers mixed into concrete improve the thermal and insulation. When it comes to performance, the most comparison is to compare the ductility and strength of ordinary building materials with those mixed with the addition of textile materials. In general, compared with other ordinary building materials, new building materials obtained by extracting fibers from textile waste and mixing with building materials also improve sound's insulation performance. Developing sound's insulation materials using cotton and polyester mixed with and natural rubber. Right here, I got the form. All right, hold up. Wait. All right. Next is raw materials and production. So since textile waste is the most common waste classification in daily life, the raw materials expenditure for new building materials, it's almost a zero. The textile waste include clothes of any material, glass, cardboard boxes, bedding, and more. And the global production of textile is on step rise. And building material concentrate from textile waste, minimize environmental damage and social cost, and also maximize the use of waste products to reach the social sustainability. Because the process of convert textiles into building materials is only to decompose textile waste. It does not undergo any chemical behavior that can produce the toxic gas. The new waste guaranteed from the textile waste can also be used to produce clothing, which also fully reflects the sustainability of this method. If all the building materials used in California in next maybe like 2 decades are replaced by this material, then the building material convert from textile waste will prove to be the most environmentally friendly materials and the most economic and raw materials and production. All right. Okay. So environmentally friendly, right? So the waste textiles will cause the fibers in textiles to pollute the entire global environment. And also, I did research for the demand for synthetic textiles has tripled in like 20 years, which is like a large number. And also, the physical decomposition method will not produce toxic gas. And finally, all right, let's just stop here.
Our first topic would be overview on the problems of the new clothing. So everyone needs, as we all know, everyone needs clothing to either show it off or we need to warm ourselves through winters. But when it comes to like recycling, almost everyone knows nothing or very little about it. I think the main culprit here is the fashion industry keep making new clothes every year, and the fact that the lifespan of clothing lasts very little means that they're made from very low quality, which is intended to last very short amount of time. Therefore, they produce tons and tons of waste that leads to overflowing landfills. And we know that landfills are very undesirable because landfills not only impact the environment, but also the health of entire populations. For example, third world country, they live next to a wasteland, and it keeps deteriorating the health. And the problem is that increasing consumerism tend to shift societies away from important values such as integrity, and there's a strong focus on materialism and competition, which make people tend to buy more and more and more goods and services they do not just need they do not need just to be better than everyone else. And some unique way to approach to recycle is that instead of recycling old clothes into new clothes, there are other methods to reduce the amount of clothing people wear every day, such as reusing old clothing, converting clothing from waste to biofuels or energy such as electricity, turning textile waste to construction materials, and last and not least, landfilling. So the last method is preferably not recommended because as we all know, landfilling can cause fires and explosion, vegetation damage, unpleasant odors, and pollution and disease and global warming. So the method that method is not good for the environment. We can incinerate. We have another process called incineration, but burning old clothing not only contributes to more greenhouse gas emissions, but it also create another landfill full of combustion clothing. So it is necessary to um, find an alternative way to recycle old clothing instead of landfilling and incineration. And to the right, show that the hierarchy of like recycling. And next method. So the first method is using textile. I think it's like one of the most effective ways to reduce consumption of buying and producing more new clothes. Generally, the consumers have the option to keep the clothing by repurposing it, restoring it. Another way they can consumers can do is by loaning or renting items, or they can do trading, donating, selling it online, and or give it away to like dead relatives. When it comes to repurposing old clothing, you can take an old clothing, like any type of clothing, cut it out, and then you can make another unique new clothing that you can wear it. Additionally, it can be used as accessories such as carry bag or some kind of like bracelet. Keep in mind that excessive like tearing or clothing that is worn too many years will be discarded. And donation, another effective method is to donate to like local church organization that like donate to third world countries, or a thrift store where it can contribute to local communities. And or another way is to use donate it through online, and typically donating online is that the effective way for people to reach out to you, and then you can make new friends, to trade clothing to each other. So converting textile waste to biofuel. We all know that resources are not infinite, and fuels such as petroleum and coal are they're they're very bad for the environment, and we must find an alternative solution to sustain ourselves without having to rely on petroleum and coal. Um, Waste to biofuel is not something new. Food waste to biofuel is the most common process that has been invented. So it is very efficient. However, textile to biofuel is a very new process that has been introduced recently. Some materials such as natural and synthetic fibers are considered as ideal carbon material to actually turn them into biofuel. And we have this process called we can use chemical reaction to break them down, and there's a process called depolymerization. Basically it breaks down all like the material into the smallest molecules, and then we can use that molecules to actually power up cars, trains, and airplanes. And it can then the use of chemically decomposing textile and gaining ability to create fuel from waste that can help similarly to environmental problems. Reusing using classification system to actually so this type of system we are going to use artificial intelligence to basically distinguish the type of clothing, distinguish the type of clothing, so we know that, oh, this is a shirt, this is a t-shirt, this is pants. And these type of process is actually much faster than human. Therefore, relying on artificial intelligence can be a huge ideal to fight to actually reduce the amount of textile waste into the environment. And that concludes my section.